welcome to Pursue the Pull, the podcast that is geared towards helping people who are looking for a career change or for those who want to pursue their dreams and start their own business. Now, how do we differ from all of the other inspirational podcasts out there? Well, what we do is we interview people from a range of different industries. So if you want to set up your own restaurant or floristry or gym, whatever it might be, we have someone specific from that industry to tell you how to get started, the highs and lows, and most importantly, the truth. Now, we are one group, one community, and we have all of the answers. I'm your host, Stacey Bevan, and today I have an amazing guest. So his name is Zach, and he is the founder and CEO of FreeHour Malta, which is a mobile application specifically for university and college students. First of all, thank you so much for joining us, Zach. We can't wait to hear the insight that you're about to share with us.
Thank you so much for having me. Really exciting to be on. I love the energy. So I'm ready to go.
Good. Okay, so look, before we go into the questions, I'm just going to give the audience a little bit of background into what it is that you do. So FreeHour Malta was founded in 2017, and it's a mobile application that allows university and college students to share their timetable with friends to facilitate meeting up on campus during their common free slots. But it also has other features. So there's several bonus features, such as providing students with discounts, suggested events, student-friendly job, and more, making it the go-to platform for all students. Now, it has grown to become the number one platform for the biggest local brands to reach and target the 13 to 27-year-old demographic through your in-app advertising and content production. And you've attracted over 200 local international brands to advertise on the app. You are also the director of FutureHour and Startup Grind Malta. These are two initiatives that aim to empower and connect entrepreneurs, innovators, and stakeholders into the Malta ecosystem. Now, you've got a lot of achievements, but I'll just mention the main one, the most recent. So you were awarded the winner of the Ernest Young Entrepreneur of the Year Awards 2024 Rising Star category. And you will be joining the winners of 60 other countries in Monaco representing Malta. You also have offices on the university campus, which strengthens your ability to engage with students and the communities, gaining deeper insights into their preferences and provide services that truly elevate the student experience. So look, I am really excited. I'm getting hot in here, but I'm very excited to go into the questions. So our first one, give us your background. Like, how did it all start? Did you go straight from college and start your own business, or was you employed? Like, how did you get to where you are now? What did that journey look like?
Cool. So from a very young age, I was always really interested in business and just creativity in general and doing my own thing, right? So it actually started when I was around 13 years old. I would create these iBooks, these online books about tutorials on how to use your iPhone and how to use your Mac in a creatively designed way. And I would publish these on the iBook store. And at the time, they used to get like 40,000 downloads. So that was my first kind of touch to, I guess, the business world, but also the Apple ecosystem, which then led me to be interested in app development, marketing, and these types of things. My parents bought me a MacBook when I was maybe 14 years old, and that really started the journey of just getting creative on my own, right? I then was in college, at junior college, at a local college, studying marketing and IT. And those were my two favorite subjects, so it kind of makes sense with what I'm doing now. And while I was a student there, I was always in this mind frame of trying to find a problem to solve, right? To start a business based on a problem which I was experiencing, which will give me the advantage of knowing how to solve that problem. Um, and with that mindset came out this idea that you described of the shared timetable application, right? So I was in college, people would constantly be messaging, are you free to meet here? It's a real hassle to compare these timetables that everyone has. And I said, wouldn't it be really simple if someone made an easy to use app which tracks your timetable, but also gives you the benefit of sharing it and comparing it with friends.
Yeah.
So I remember having that idea, that moment. I remember drawing it up at like 2 a.m. in the morning. And in the morning, I still have that drawing somewhere here. I remember showing it to my parents saying like, this is it. This is what's going to get me out of school. I never loved school. I always kind of wanted a less traditional route. They're like, okay, great, but you need to finish your A levels before you decide to do anything crazy. And so I did, and I had that idea for around a year or so and sat on it. And as soon as I finished my A levels, I immediately said, okay, now it's time to go. My parents were very supportive at the time in telling me, listen, like explore it, see how much it's going to cost. You have to do it yourself. We'll support it, but you have to figure it out. And so that started the process of looking into who can build this app for me, who can design it, how do you go about marketing it. And I remember I found these local developers, and they had told me like, it's going to cost you 18,000 euros to create this app. And that moment, I still remember it. It was a bit of a crushing moment of like, okay, this is too far out of my league. I mean, I had like 200 euros in my bank account at the time. And so that was that. But I luckily didn't give up, right? I looked into what I could do to reduce that cost. So really boiling it down to what people in business call the MVP, which is kind of like the most important feature, the most basic thing you can launch quickly with, so then you can learn and get some feedback from. And that cost around 7,000 euros, which was still a lot, but a lot more doable, kind of something that you maybe can take a bit of a risk on. And I really did believe in the idea because I experienced that problem for 2 years, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So that was that. I can go on into how it continues from here.
Keep going.
Cool. So that's what we did, and so I had this 6,000 euros quote kind of thing, and I said, okay, how can we raise this type of money, right? And an idea which I had come across online, or my father had passed on to me, was crowdfunding through friends, family, and fools is the funny saying. And so I created this piece of paper which said, listen, if you give me 100 euros, I'll pay you back in 2 years with 3% interest, kind of like loan me the money and I'll pay you back. And I pitched this to every living person I knew, from random people at university to my aunt, to my grandparents, to my parents' friends. I would put the presentation up on the TV and just pitch it to 20 people kind of thing at family gatherings and this type of stuff. So that was really good practice. But also looking back, really showed me how much I wanted this, right? Believe it or not, we managed to get that money stage by stage. So I was paying my developers in 3 installments, and I would just be trying to collect money whilst we're paying them. And some 4 or 5 months after, we were ready to go, and we launched it on social media. It got coverage through some national news portals at the time, and that really helped us like go quick. And on the first day, I remember we had 700 downloads. So that was already really good. And after 3 months, it was already at 10,000 from basically all the colleges and universities around the island. So very quickly, within a year or so, there was really good proof of concept, which is what you want at that stage. Like, does this idea work? We had generated really good feedback. People were telling us that they want more of it, they want different features. And so that was the idea. The idea then shifted, okay, this could probably be something a bit bigger. And we could make it a go-to student platform, not just a timetable solution. And we won a pitching competition at the time, which gave us another 12,000 euros, and I invested that all into the version 2 of the app, which kind of had
Mm-hmm.
all the initial ideas that I had wanted to do. And very quickly, we became this default mobile app, which allowed us to then start getting businesses to advertise on, and that then came my first hire, and that's where the business side started. So I then dropped out of university 3 months in, because it
Wow.
was. I remember telling my parents, like, look, like, it's generating some revenue. If it keeps going, it should be that. I was also doing terribly in exams because I was just focused on this. And I started the full journey, which we can go into later, how we moved to content creation as well.
Yeah. So how did you so you went straight in, all guns blazing, you went and got the app where other people, because I've spoke to other people that are in this situation, and they're like, okay, we need this app and then we'll start doing the promotion once we get the app. But some people are like, no, okay, we need to get our social media going first and get engagement from there and then launch the app because then we'll have a following. What made you to decide to just go all in? Did you already have that social following or some sort of following to get those downloads quickly, or how did that work?
Good question. No, we didn't. So the launch of, I think we maybe launched the socials like a week before and said something's coming. But this was, 7 years ago. It was somehow less noisy.
Yeah,
You could stand out a bit easier on social media.
yeah,
I feel it was easier to get attention, especially locally at the time. It was more rare for someone young to do something like this. And that's something I really realized early on. And that is that because I'm young, I can get a lot of free media.
yeah.
So I really remember actively squeezing the hell out of that and saying, if I ask for interviews, people give them to me because it's a good story of an 18-year-old doing something. And I
Yeah.
did like a press run of 3 months going on national television and random shows and online
Wow.
podcasts and newspapers, which made my 500 euro marketing budget become a 20,000 euro marketing budget. And
Incredible.
that's really made a big difference for the whole business because it gave us national coverage, even not just for students, but parents were finding out, business owners were finding out, which allowed us to start monetizing it a bit quicker, right? Because you have to build
Yeah.
your user base first, you have to build some credibility. But that happened all in the span of 1 year.
Wow. Oh my gosh. And was there any kind of moment where you thought, oh, I should go and get a job first and then go into being an entrepreneur and working for myself? Maybe I need some experience first. Like, did that thought ever cross your mind, or was it just, I want my own business and that's it?
No, I think that's I think I was kind of lucky enough to really know that I didn't want to have a job and just want this kind of. And there's also, when you're younger, I think you're, how do you say, like the you're
Risk
just
averse.
you just go for it. You're not gonna think
Yeah.
of everything too much, and that naivety, that's the word I was looking for, is
Yeah.
a massive strength. Where it's like, of course, I'll just do this. If it doesn't work, then I'll just go back and get a job. But I was really trying not to. I was really trying not to finish university. That was the whole aim. I was hating it, and it's like, I need to do this to get me out of here, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that was a good motivating part of it. And no, the feedback was immediately. It's tough to land the first business correctly. Luckily,
Yeah.
it was the right idea. It was the right time in the market, so things played in my favor. I also worked a really lot, right? So it was harder than university technically, but
Uh-huh.
it's something I really enjoyed. And I worked, I remember the first few years, just every day till 4 a.m. on my laptop, just creating
Wow.
designs and creating things. But that was amazing. It was for me, it was just the best case scenario.
Yeah. Did you experience, because a lot of people that want to go into business, one of the things that stops them is having that fear and self doubt. Did you have any of that yourself? And if so, how did you kind of overcome that?
I think in the early stages, again, like, yes, you do have doubts. But looking back and I see photos, I'm nearly impressed with myself at how like I didn't care a lot what people
Okay.
thought. And I would like just go on, camera and speak myself. So I didn't have much of that. I mean, again, I had confidence in the idea. I had played around with these things, so I
Yeah.
knew we were releasing something decent. And then the feedback was really good. Some advice I have is like people always think that you're going to be really judged and really hated on, when it's really not the case. I think if people see you're doing something, it's my experience has been it's very positive and
Positive.
supportive. So
Yeah.
that fear of judgment doesn't really happen. It happened to us or to me at a later stage when the business was much bigger. We were at the center of attention and we had a few PR issues, which
Yeah.
then I felt like, okay, but that came at the point where you're successful. There's
Yeah.
there's more of a reason for people to kind of attack you because you're more successful. But
Yeah.
by that time you kind of get used to it. It's also part of it. It's part of managing it. um,
Yeah.
but no, at the beginning it was very like, listen, I want to do this. I was lucky it was working, the energy was flowing forward. You feel that behind you every day something good would happen.
Yeah.
um, and you just kind of take that, right? But you do need to not overthink too much. I think naturally had quite a good appetite for risk.
Yeah.
I might say like, it's 6,000 euros, like, oh my God. But like, if you just kind of just fuck it kind of thing, just go
Yeah.
for
Just
it.
go for it.
With that attitude, like everything isn't a problem. It's like,
Yeah.
we'll just see.
Yeah. And we have a question. So someone asked, how do you seek like inspiration? Do you have like, is there any books or anyone that you follow in particular, or do you have like a business mentor? Like, where do you get that inspiration and motivation from?
So I think at kind of in the first phases, I really loved Apple and the brand,
Yeah.
and I loved kind of how it's run and the marketing of it. I also loved like Facebook, and that story is kind of similar to ours in terms of like starting in the college area and then growing from there. So no,
Yeah.
I'm not the type of person who read a lot, but I had this kind of idea of what I wanted to be, and then I discovered maybe a year or two in Gary Vaynerchuk. I'm sure you know who he is.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I think I learned business through him.
Wow.
I consumed all his content. I really understood certain frameworks that he used for content and about really like valuing your audience and getting feedback and always building it for the people, giving value with your product,
Yeah.
like basic fundamentals, which I took and to this day are part of my language and part of now the team's language. So he for
Yeah.
sure was a big part of that, along with all the YouTube videos and conferences I saw. So
Yeah.
without knowing, I was really educating myself just because it was what I enjoyed. It's like the video I would
Yeah.
put on to like relax at home kind of thing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And that just gave me a lot of experience, along with being surrounded locally by a few good business people who really helped me guide the way. My parents weren't in business, but luckily I was working in an office which had a similar-ish business. So I would just listen, I would get involved in conversations and in meetings where I could, just
Yeah.
trying to put my head in. And through there, you learn how to run the company side, which was very valuable a bit later once you started hiring people and creating
Yeah.
processes and once the kind of boring, complex stuff comes about.
Yeah. And you were young when you started. Did you have to give up a lot in terms of like, going out and, doing all of that? What did it cost you? What did you have to give up at that time? Because that's a really young age to, it's
It's a good
prime time,
question.
really.
I, I think from a tangible perspective, I don't think I really missed out. It's not like I didn't go out at
Yeah.
all. So like while my friends were doing university exams, like you're just working on this thing. So I was never one to like lock myself in for a year. It wasn't that intense.
Okay.
But then on the flip side is, you kind of mature quicker. You're sacrificing. It's kind of more mental than tangible, right? You're dealing
Oh,
with more serious problems. There's a lot of
yeah.
pressure. So from that side, I feel that it took a lot out of me. And I remember kind of later on, I reflected a lot on your question and kind of what did it cost and what areas did I kind of ignore from a self-development perspective. And then I started going to therapy to unpack, like, my identity was
Wow.
very much wrapped into the business because I didn't have the time to find it outside of that. And so if something was really good, I would feel bad. And then, sorry, if something
Yeah.
was good, I'd feel really good. If something was bad, I'd feel really bad emotionally. So then there was a process of kind of trying to grow as Zach, not just as the business, which came from like 22 to
Yeah.
5, like now.
Wow, amazing. And so was there any challenges, or can you give any examples of any like challenges that you had to face and overcome that was really quite bad, and you thought, oh gosh, can I continue with this? Did you face any of those kind of challenges?
For sure. I think there's the day-to-day stuff which can't be underrated. So every day there's a problem, which you need to solve and keep
Yeah.
going with. But then there was a few like big ones where I can get into the details. There was one time where we decided to do this kind of event on campus where we said as a marketing and a fun thing that we would have a bubble of 1,000 euros and €5 notes that were going to pop and everyone can kind of run. And that turned out to be a really bad PR disaster kind of
Oh,
thing.
right.
So the students loved it,
Yeah.
but traditional media kind of took it from the angle of, you're making students run for cash. Look what society has ended up
Wow.
being. And also, we had way more people than we expected, so there was also safety concern, which is totally true. So that's something which we didn't plan for. It was like one of
Wow.
the 10 things we had, and this one just hit in a way we didn't expect. And suddenly there's 3,000 people kind of all
Oh,
cramped in each
free
other.
money.
Yeah. So that's the power of that. And it showed us also the power of the platform. And the responsibility also we have with what we do with that. So that blew up really badly, and my face was all over the headlines and the news, and suddenly, like you're on this high, and then suddenly it's like everyone's against you, and it really felt like that. Which psychologically, you're not used to that, like opening Facebook and seeing hundreds of comments of parents and everyone's kind of shitting on the idea and you. So that was one which took me a while to get out of and made me a bit scared and a bit risk averse.
Yeah.
Because then you're like, oh my god, like everyone's watching. You really have to be careful. We're a very public company because this was in the time where the social media were already at 50,000 followers. So it was there. And then more recently, around a year ago, there was another very similar situation to this, where there was a situation where four students from university managed to kind of hack into our system and change a few things around. And our experience self, we knew we had an obligation to report this because of the data,
Mm.
right? So we reported it, but then the student ended up kind of being arrested because of that. And then it
Wow.
looked like we wanted them to be arrested or kind of went after them, which wasn't the case. We were kind of fulfilling our obligation of data protection. And that
Yeah.
blew up, obviously, because it's like FreeHour is attacking its own students, which again was a bit of a spun narrative. But it was such a complicated case that's
Yeah.
fair enough for the public to like be confused, because when you see the headline, it's like they're arrested because of FreeHour, but obviously there's a lot behind
Oh,
it. So that was the second kind of big national one, which was much bigger than the first one. It's also much more serious. The other one
yeah.
kind of like, okay, it's a marketing thing, like, but this was, they're actually getting in serious trouble. And for us, it's doesn't represent what we stand for at all, you know. And again, you crisis manage, you double down on what people followed you for in the first place, and we slowly have won people's trust back. But again, for me and the team, you know, it's a big shock, and it comes out of nowhere. You're just one morning and suddenly, okay, you're in this, you feel very inexperienced in it. So those two are like my biggest moments of like, oh my God, this is on a proper, everyone's talking about it, every move has repercussions, there's lawyers involved and consultants, and we're all here trying to figure it out, you know. And it's those situations where you realize, okay, we have to be careful, you know, how we're in the spotlight. People, as much as we're young, it's also not an excuse for our inexperience.
Yeah.
So those were two moments, along with many other small ones, which again showed us what a responsibility we have and was a constant reminder. And I think we've done really, really well at adapting to that, because, you know, when you're a small company, you can be loud, you can do this, you can do that. And after a certain point, you mature and you need to start acting more of an example. I think we've adapted quite well. It took a lot of training, of reframing our mindset, of kind of building policies and building what values the company stands for internally, for the culture to like breed this new version of FreeHour, which was fun, very exciting, and a good challenge and a normal challenge for like the stages in a business. But yeah, those were difficult. But again, you really learn a lot in these situations, and you realize that, you know, time heals, both personally, the brand, you know, you can come out of these situations. But you need to learn really clearly from each one.
Wow, those are some challenges. So how did you know that this was the right path for you, that this was the right thing to do in terms of starting your own business, but doing your own business in this? How did you know that it was right for you?
I think it goes back to a bit what I said before, where it felt right, and I enjoyed it. I think that's the biggest variable of it all. For me, it's like I wake up excited for it. It changes a lot. It's very dynamic. It's not a boring business. Quite the opposite. You know, it's not something, you know, you're out there, you're doing different projects every week. It's very dynamic. You work with young people. You get to lead a team of young people. So it's always felt quite right. And you mentioned, for example, the startup grind thing at the beginning. That's something which I tried to do, and it just didn't feel right. And it's stopped after a year. The feeling was, oh, I have to do this. Not, yes, I get to do this. And as a character, I think I don't work well in those situations. It used to feel like school again when I'm doing something like that I don't like to do. And very naturally, I just let go of them. And now I've learned to kind of cut the barrier before I disappoint people or before I commit to something like that. But again, you have to try and you have to see and experiment and say, but, you know, I like this, and maybe, okay, this is hard, but it's worth it because of another thing, you know, or I'm learning something really new and it's outside of my comfort zone. But I think, you know, when it's the right one, and sticking to your gut there has been, I think, good advice, while still taking the necessary risks and experimentations.
And one of the things that you mentioned before is like you didn't, and a lot of business people say this, a lot of people that I interview, they don't just focus on the money. They focus on, you know, what they enjoy doing, or they have other reasons. Do you think that's important, that you shouldn't focus on the money, or do you think, like, what is your take on that?
I think for the big percentage, like to this day, it was never about the money, which is like really, and I used to think it was just because I was young. I used to think like, oh, like I'm 20, I didn't pay myself for the first 3 years, for example, just to hire other people and constantly reinvest. We didn't make profits till like quite recently. We just always reinvest. that's something I learned from Gary Vee, which is like, don't suffocate the business with your own personal wants and needs. I had enough to go abroad and go out. I wasn't living badly, but I didn't
Yeah.
need to buy a crazy car or, these things which maybe
Yeah.
you do once you kind of see a bit of money.
Mm,
I think that was a big part of it. I think we also, as a company, are all like that, and no one's
yeah.
here to make the most money possible. It's
Mm,
based on the passion they have for the job and for what we do,
yeah.
which again just creates such a nicer environment and such a nicer experience. As I get older, I do think of the money more in terms of,
Hmm.
so kind of from a technical perspective, after 7 years, you want to be making some money.
Yeah.
As a business, you know what I mean? You can't kind of forever not.
Yeah.
But again, it's in no way to like selfishly take on this thing or to buy stupid things. It's more like from a business, putting the business first as
Yeah.
key throughout. That can have effects on you. Like I said
Yeah.
before, it's always FreeHour then Zach, and in some ways you need to learn to put the person before. So, for example, small things like not working on the weekends or not feeling bad
Mm,
overall. These are small ways you can learn to set your own boundaries with the job.
yeah.
And you give and take where necessary.
Amazing. Okay, so I've got two questions. It's kind of a two-part question. These are the last two questions. I could talk to you forever, but these are the last two questions. So, in terms of advice for, let's start with the younger generation. What advice would you give them if they are thinking about starting a business? How should they go about it? Like what? Because I mean, in school, there's not much teachings around starting a business, which is why I'm doing this podcast as well. So, what advice would you give to people that were kind of your age, a younger generation, if they want to start a business?
I think there are two things. I think one of them comes before that, and for me, it was this. It was finding something that keeps me up at night, something
Yeah.
that I'm gonna do even if I'm not paid for. So like having that passion for something will lead to the business, and even if it's not the business you end up opening, if I love to create designs, just do it and you'll figure something out through it, like I did with the books, and then that randomly led to the right idea at the right time.
Wow.
So that is just when you're young and you don't know what business you want to open, you just know you want to do something. Like try find the thing that's like really excites you, and then the idea will come. And then when it comes to actually starting, um, I think it's a few things. I think you need to have conviction and you need to have that strong sense of vision for it. And that is really, really important, especially in the early years when you're defining what it is. And that is what will lead you to employ people who want to work for you because there's a very clear vision. Risk, the element of risk, you need to be comfortable with it. I don't think it is a job for people who are constantly overthinking or who are not comfortable with that level of pressure and complicatedness in a way. So the self-awareness needs to come before that. You need to know yourself a bit, but you really need to be ready for it. And also, which is something I see a lot, kind of like, what level do you want to, I don't know how to explain this, I'll try, kind of like, what level do you want to play at? Because you can start a business doing something small and it's maybe a bit amateurish and it kind of will end there. So like having a bit more of like conviction and like, yes, this is something I can do. It's gonna take a lot of money, a lot of effort to do, but
Yeah.
those are the ones that really survive, when it's not just project that you pick up, do for 2 months and then stop. That can be fine to learn, but if you have that idea and you really think it's the one, then you need to treat it like that. And I always had that vision and I could picture what it looked like in 3 years, and I wanted it to get there and I knew it. I could see the road kind kind of thing. So it wasn't just, okay, let's do this and then let's do this. Without me knowing, I knew that there was this bigger picture, which it could end up being. Still surpassed my expectations. But you know, I had that. I think that level of seriousness in how I approached it attracted more advertisers, attracted better people. So I was very serious about it.
And what about, like, because we've got an older audience that listen to this podcast as well, and a lot of them are currently working, they're not happy in their job, and they're trying to do that transition from leaving their job to starting their own business. But obviously they've got responsibilities, some of them have got families, bills to pay. And, you know, I've had different advice from different entrepreneurs, but what would your advice be to those people? They're really passionate about it, but, you know, they do have these kind of responsibilities.
So it's a good question, and maybe I should have started by saying this. Naturally, this is the perspective of a 25-year-old who doesn't.
Yeah.
And maybe who was lucky enough to find it before those responsibilities came about. So really and truly, I don't think I'm the best equipped to answer that. I think some of the things I said still apply. You're always going to have to take a risk. It's never going to be the perfect time. So at a point, you're going to have to jump. But doing it, something I've heard people say is doing it hybrid for a while, you know, so you work your 9 to 5, but like, what can you do between, you know, 7 and midnight? It's going to take that sweat equity to set something up. So you don't need to like just leave today and start from zero tomorrow. It would be good to kind of build a foundation with action and not just planning, because you can plan for the rest of your life, you know, like, so like, okay, do the little things, open the Instagram page, and then, you know, try film something in the evening, and try start some development on the product and design something, you know. So then you can leave with being close to something real, not like you leave and it takes 7 months to actually launch the product or service, because that's gonna kill you, you know. You can't do 7 months income. So trying to just build it to a point where, okay, it's catching fire, now I can take the jump is probably my advice.
That action and planning point that you just made, that's really important, because a lot of people spend so long planning and they don't take the action. They start, you know, preparing everything, making sure everything's perfect before they plan to launch.
For sure.
Is that the right way to go about it, do you think, in terms of like, how do you know when the right time is to just either take the action or, you know, continue with the planning process? Like, how do you know when it's the right time?
I think for me personally, at least, I'm not a good planner. So the only way I learn and can kind of think of something is if I start doing it. So I think it's good to plan, and at this stage of the business, I thank God I have the people to really plan for certain things. But as a person, it was always like, okay, I want to start the app, so I need to design it. I can design it in one night, basically, just general idea. What's the next step? Get a quote. So send an email, get a quote. Okay, next step, funding. Okay, let's do this, and go out and reach out to people. Okay, like, you know, it's very like step by step, but step by step on the paper, like in action.
And in action.
So that, you know, not saying, then I'll send the emails and I'll do this. It's like, okay, get to the emails, send the emails, because it's going to change. You can never plan for it. So you're going to learn, you're going to get an idea in another meeting. And you know, the forward motion is, you need that to feel like it's real. And my biggest, where I struggle a lot is when a project isn't real yet, when we're just talking about it. Like, I need to feel it to start getting into it. I need to, okay, let's launch the brand, launch the Instagram page. Let's pick the colors in 15 minutes. Let's pick the colors, you know what I mean? Let's not spend 2 weeks on it and go, and then we'll change the colors if like, you know, if you know, so I think that approach has helped us move fast in a lot of ways. And just, you can feel it, and then you can change your mind based on feedback, and it's easy to fix certain decisions. Like, only you care that much about the colors, like, you know what I mean? Launch like this, then rebrand after a year, out of it, you know. Simple example.
That is great advice. And final question, I promise. So if someone wanted to do exactly what it is that you do as a business. Like, what advice would you give them? Do they need like the marketing training that you had, or do they need to study somewhere else? Or like, what kind of advice would you give them if they wanted to kind of get in this kind of space that you're in?
They should work for us.
I like
No.
that.
So I think in principle, you need to understand your audience, and you need to reverse engineer what they like and don't like. I think that is the foundation of every media or B2C product. They know the audience, they know when they buy or when they consume, how they want to consume, and that forever is the challenge and will continue adapting. But starting at a really good understanding of that persona, then the ideas come, you know. But if you
Yeah.
get that wrong, then you're off totally on the wrong path. Um,
Mm.
and then I think it's about doing, right. So okay, you have this understanding. Let's start by next week. Let's get this out by the week after. Let's try something else, constantly experimenting with it. um, Content is very saturated, so it's difficult to stand out. I don't know what advice to give there. Um, you might need money, you might need a different angle. So, as much as what I said is true, it is saturated. New players still find ways to enter the market, but they
Yeah.
definitely are doing something different, or they find that one unique edge, and that's all it takes. That one thing we do better than the competitor, which
Yeah.
puts you in. You know, you enter, and then you can
Yeah.
change then. But you need that, what's your special sauce? That's what.
Yeah. Yeah. That is it. Look, I want to thank you so much. You have been amazing. You've given us so much insight, and I know the audience is going to love this. So I just want to thank
Amazing.
you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to do this interview. It's been amazing.
You're welcome. Really, really had fun, honestly. And we should do it again one time for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so
Good
much.
luck.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye bye.